Kevin, we certainly have had progress on the Rwanda plan. We now know, or have been told, assured by Rishi Sunak, I was there, I was in the room, when he said that in 10 to 12 weeks, early July, these flights will take off. What do you make of what's happened on that front?
Well, it's really good news. If the flights do take off, then I shall be doing a Suella Braverman and cheering them, because I think it's the right idea. And we are beginning to see that the migrants in northern France are concerned about what's happening. We're seeing that more and more migrants are now crossing to Northern Ireland so that they can get into the Republic, because of course there's no border there, because they don't want to stay in the UK now, because they are worried about Rwanda.
That's a fascinating one, isn't it? I was reading about that just last night, actually, Kevin, about the Republic of Ireland and the fact that they are saying that something like 80% of their migrants are coming across from Northern Ireland. So they're coming into the UK and then they're going to Northern Ireland. And of course, that border is open. Yeah. That was the point of the Brexit deal, the Windsor Framework and all the rest of it. Freedom of movement, well, that was more about goods. But anyway, freedom of movement, common travel area that's existed from the 1920s. And you can go across the Irish border as a person, not as a good or service, but as a person, pretty freely.
Yes, that's right. And that's what's happening. And of course, the Irish are getting very concerned, but I think this was inevitable once the Rwanda policy got more publicity and seems to be going through. I've said for a long time, Peter, particularly to your good self, people do not want to come across the channel paying vast amounts of money if they stand any chance of being flown out to Rwanda. They won't do it.
Do you know what, actually, on that issue with Ireland and the relationship between UK migrants, we're actually going to do that on the programme tomorrow, I think. We'll talk about that specific Irish issue tomorrow. I think it's a good thing to get into. But Kevin, thanks for your perspective on it. James, I want your perspective on something else, which is a massive gaffe by a government minister, Chris Philp. He is a Home Office minister. He's the policing minister. He's not an immigration minister. He's the policing minister. Let's just watch what he said on Question Time on the BBC on Thursday night.
No, I think there's an exclusion on people from Rwanda being sent to Rwanda.
They're not from Rwanda, they're from Congo.
They're from Congo.
And they're supposedly warring these people from Rwanda. Are they then going to be sent to Rwanda if they came here on a crossing?
From
Congo? Yeah.
Would people be sent from... Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Definitely. So you're saying if they come from a war zone in Congo, would they then be sent to Rwanda?
Wes Streeting there at the end of that clip, if you're listening on the radio, or maybe you've seen this around social media, if you're listening on the radio, Wes Streeting was sort of looking, he's the Shadow Health Secretary, also on the panel with Chris Philp, looking from side to side there. And the point that the audience member in the Question Time was making, wasn't he, James, was that if someone comes from war-torn Congo, which is, and there is a conflict with Rwanda, if they come to the UK and are then deported to Rwanda, surely they would be in peril because Rwanda is in conflict with Congo. But Chris Philp really saying the words, oh yes, it's a different country, isn't it? I mean, that level of naivete, I think a lot of people will have dropped their jaws. I'm not sure, look, African geography, probably not my strong point, but I know that Congo and Rwanda are neighbouring countries, and you would expect perhaps a Home Office minister to know that they were neighbouring countries, especially when they're putting forward this flagship policy, James.
Absolutely, and I think it's great. Wes Streeting has given us a new favourite meme to use in this election year. I'm sure it's going to get wheeled out a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the difficulty of it, which is that, you know, the principle of offshoring migrants is an established one, processing them elsewhere. But the question is, where do you choose to send them? And thus far, I'm aware of a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes, but only one country, Rwanda, has agreed to publicly take those. And so the difficulty then gets into the issue of Rwandan politics. So in a sense, you could be sent to, you know, trying to offshore our politics and subcontract that out. And to the Rwandans. And that, of course, is what the Supreme Court in its judgment in November got very worried about, and that's why it delivered such a stinging slapdown to the government's plans, was because they were saying, look, it's not necessarily about the UK government, it's about what's going to happen with the Kigali government. That's really the issue.
And
I
actually,
think.
on that exact point, well, not Rwandan politics necessarily, but specifically the Rwandan preparedness. I want to ask Kevin about this in a second. But first of all, I just want to play the full exchange, if I can, between Rishi Sunak and me. I'm as well as a presenter in this session, I'm also the chief political commentator, and my boss has sent me down to Downing Street to that press conference, and I asked Rishi Sunak a question on this exact topic. Let's have a look at that.
Right, next, talkTV.
Peter Cardwell, talkTV. The Rwandan President, Paul Kagame, you met him recently. He has said that money could be returned if this scheme doesn't work. We know the Buwiza housing development, 70% of that housing development has been sold. It was originally meant to be from people who were sent to Rwanda. You've talked about the preparation a lot on the UK side. You've talked a little bit about the Rwandan side. How confident are you that even though the migrants might be on board, that the Rwandans still are?
Yeah, so I met President Kagame just the other week when he was in London. We have a very good, close relationship, and we're very lucky. Our Deputy Foreign Secretary, Andrew, has a very long-standing relationship with the Rwandans and the Rwandan government, and has been crucial in making sure that we work well together. But to your point, Peter, they're doing absolutely everything that is required to make sure that this scheme is successful. Just to give you a sense of that, they've got initial reception accommodation centres ready, Hope Hostel being the first one, and longer-term accommodation beyond that will provide accommodation for thousands. The Home Office have now helped to train, I think at last count, 69 different Rwandan asylum decision makers. There are almost 40 Rwandan lawyers that are ready to provide extra legal assistance. Judges have also been trained. The co-presidents of the new appeal body in the treaty have already been selected, and the Joint Monitoring Committee has already been set up. So thanks to Andrew and the Home Office's work, I think we're in very good shape, actually, and Paul is completely committed to making this partnership work. Whenever we've needed something from them, when we've had to address concerns that have been raised by our courts, they've been willing to work with us. We've done it constructively and collaboratively. And I think the question you should ask, and Andrew spoke to this morning, is why? Why? Because Rwanda cares about tackling this issue, right? It has proudly already hosts more than 135,000 people seeking safety. They're as passionate as we are about ending this awful global illegal migration crisis. They've got a proud track record working with the UN for Libyan refugees, for example. And this is an opportunity for us to strengthen not just our economic relationship with them, but work together with them to help do something that many other countries, by the way, are looking at as a potential model. And many European countries, and I speak to lots of European leaders, all of them, right, know that illegal migration is a growing challenge. It's a global challenge. And together with Rwanda, we're on the forefront of demonstrating a new way to deal with this. And I think that is something that people have stood up and taken notice of. The Rwandans, like us, are keen to make sure it's a success. And as I said, European countries are looking at this, and I will say this here, I've said it in the past, you've seen the narrative on this change from the first time I spoke to you all when I got this job. I said then that others, where we lead, others will follow. You have seen that, right? European countries all talking about third country partnerships, and that being one of the tools that you need to resolve this. This is novel, this is innovative, but it will be a game changer, and I'm grateful to the Rwandans and Andrew's work in particular in making sure they're absolutely ready to successfully implement the policy. The last thing I would say, it's a very long answer, is the treaty, which we work very hard with, will be ratified, as we said, in the days right after the bill receives royal assent. That is all on track, and that is ready to go as well. And it's the treaty that deals with all the concerns that were raised by the Supreme Court, the Monitoring Committee, the extra set of judges, all of that, which Victoria can go through in detail. But all of that is done and ready to be ratified as soon as the bill passes.
So I think we can agree that the Prime Minister did answer my question. He certainly spent about 3 minutes doing so, and he referenced Andrew's work there. That's Andrew Micheál, who is the Deputy Foreign Secretary. He's been working on this as well. But so that's a little bit about sort of the nuts and bolts of how Rwanda is getting ready for this. I wonder, Kevin Saunders, who's still with me, former Chief Immigration Officer for UK Border Force, how much confidence do you have that the Rwandans are ready? Perhaps listening to that answer and from your own knowledge, Kevin.
Well, the information that I have is that Home Office officials have been going out of Rwanda on a regular basis, making sure that everything is set up. And in answer to your question, the PM did actually give you figures, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
People that have been trained and everything else. So the Home Office have been doing a fantastic job in getting the Rwandans up to speed with this. And now, really, all we're waiting for is the first flight to take off.
Yeah. Yeah, and James Heal, how politically useful will that be to Rishi Sunak? Because the local elections in England and parts of Wales are happening on Thursday. Some people say, that's going to be a disaster for the Conservatives. We'll see Labour riding high in the polls. Liberal Democrats and Reform will hope to make gains as well. But certainly for Rishi Sunak, this time next weekend could be the moment of maximum danger for him and his leadership if it goes badly in the polls. Some people would say, cynics, of course, but just because you're a cynic doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, that the defence spending, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and the Rwanda aspect of this, these two big announcements this week are there to sort of copper fasten Rishi Sunak in office, at least until the election. What do you make of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think that, one quote that sort of sums up just how little the voters are listening to the Conservatives right now is from a former cabinet minister in the Times today, which is that even if we found a cure for cancer and made the sun shine every day, we still wouldn't get the credit for it.
And give everybody a free puppy.
Absolutely. And this is the thing, right, Peter? Rishi Sunak's had a really good week. He got the Rwanda Bill into law. He's had a big defence spending announcement. The national insurance tax cut will start to be felt in people's pockets. If they don't give him the credit after this week and next week, and we don't start to see a sort of bit of movement in the polls, 2 or 3%, frankly, you have to think, what is going to change it? Now, if we look ahead to the sort of medium term, the Rwandan Bill, the whole hope for that is that it's going to see a sort of rolling passage of flights to the extent to which those flights become boring and not newsworthy when it's the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, etc., a regular pattern. And the Conservatives want to go into an election campaign saying, look, this scheme is working. We're sending them out there. Is Labour going to stop that? And put Labour on the back foot every single day. Because apart from the Rwanda policy, there isn't that much in terms of illegal immigration, which at Labour stories are saying differently. They both want to smash the gangs. They both want international cooperation. So that's what they're hoping. I don't think it's going to be a kind of sort of big bazooka that can turn everything a game changer. But I do think it is interesting that there is so little clear blue water right now between the Conservatives and Labour on a lot of things that it's one of the few dividing lines they have to go in election.
It is a major dividing line politically. Will it work in terms of a deterrent? Just briefly, finally, Kevin Saunders, do you think it'll work as a deterrent? Do you think those boats will be stopped?
I think as soon as we see the flights taking off, and that's the thing, it's a very visual thing, seeing aeroplanes take off. And this is what is so important. And yes, I do think it will act as a major deterrent once we see the flights taking off and once we see people being detained to be put on the flight. Once the detention starts, people will be thinking twice or three times about coming across the channel.
Well, early July is apparently when it's happening. That's what the Prime Minister told me in the room on Monday. We will see if it happens. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. That's James Heal, political correspondent of The Spectator, and Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force. Lots of people getting in touch about this.